Hello. Can you hear me, guys?
Hello.
How are you?
Hola, Oscar.
Hola. Everything good? How are you holding up?
All good around here. Yeah.
Great. Do you know if anyone else is gonna join, or should we start?
I don't know.
Maybe a couple more minutes.
Yes, I think Anise and Bosania will join. They just left my house like 15 minutes ago, so they will be a little bit late.
Okay. Well, I'll wait maybe a couple of minutes and then we can start.
Oscar,
Okay,
today Python or what are we doing today?
Yeah, we're gonna continue a little bit on Python, and I will give you a little bit of insights about why we're doing all this. And yeah, we're gonna keep going on what we did last time and dig a little bit deeper.
Vale.
Oscar, can I ask you something in the meantime before others are joining? Yesterday I tried to include like a movie, like a YouTube movie into my website and like try to basically like just copy paste the embedding code. But I was basically like, I mean, like it was driving me crazy because there was no way that it actually worked on the website. Do you know like if there's something that I need to like specifically focus on there or?
Well, normally the way you embed this, well, the YouTube in general is through what we call an iframe. Let's see, actually, I think I have a good example here. You see, these are the video classes from the Fab Academy local documentation. And here we put I think they're all in YouTube, and we put the videos in here. So
Yeah.
if we inspect the page, I guess that Giuseppe told you about this tool in which you can see how the website is being rendered in the browser, and you can see the code behind it. So
Yeah.
if we go to this, if it's uploading. Here, well, actually, this is just YouTube, like a YouTube video. But normally, what we do is .com, and you share. There's a when you share it, there's an iframe option, and let's just click this, share, and embed, and it gives you this iframe.
Yeah.
If you put that, not breaking anything like a div or anything like that, it should appear with no problem.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because I tried that and it actually didn't work.
Okay.
But yeah.
Maybe we can have a look at
time.
if you want to you want, maybe open up an issue, and we can have a look at it in your actual code.
Okay, perfect. Yeah. Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So let's open up just for a second a calendar. Do you see my screen, right? Let me just remove all these things. So more or less in in 3 weeks from now or 4 weeks from now, you will have a class talking about machine learning with Lucas and Ramon. They are two associate professors from, I think it's UPF, and they will be teaching machine learning principles. And some of the things that we will be talking about here in the club will be used in that session. So what we're trying to do right now by focusing onto Python is to talk a little bit about those basics that you will need during those classes. And then with them, you will work deeper into the principles that rule machine learning algorithms and how they are integrated in Python and all these things and many other ethical components and other topics. But here during the last session, this session, and maybe another one, what we will try to do is to level up a little bit your Python knowledge and basic programming knowledge so that you can get to that class in, let's say, a good level of understanding of some items and components in Python in general, so that it doesn't sound in Chinese. After that class, we're going to be a little bit more varied, and we're going to talk about other things. And the idea is that since you're going to be integrating these things or these classes with Fab Academy starting from January, we won't talk about Python anymore. We will talk about other general things like how to set up a Raspberry Pi, how to connect to it remotely, how to make scripts in Raspberry Pi or any other program to suit your needs or projects, and also talk about creative coding and many other programming languages and frameworks. So don't worry if you right now don't like Python that much. We're doing a basic introduction course that could be done in any other programming language. The programming concepts that we're talking about are mostly generic and could apply to C++, could apply to Java, or could apply to any other language that you want to talk about. And we're doing this specifically because in 2-3 weeks you will have this course, and we think that is good opportunity for you to get to the level and get a better experience during that class. Having said that, If you have any questions before that, you can do them now. Otherwise, I'm going to jump into today's class. Any questions for now? So a little bit of recap of what we talked about last time. Basically, the concept that I wanted to give you last time was that no matter the programming language that we use, we can make computers to work for us. At the end, what we are doing while doing programs and scripts is to make a computer that's something for us that suits our interests. And basically, no matter what type of framework or programming language we use, we need basically two things. A script, which is basically a text file that contains a set of instructions that our computer will understand, and someone that will run that script. In this case, we were talking about Python, but we'll be talking about Java, C++, or creative coding environments, whatever we like. We learned a little bit how to understand where these files live, where Python lives, and how to call it. So we now know how to run applications or scripts written in Python. But remember that what I give you now is generic to any other programming language or scripting framework. So it should apply to the rest. We also talked a little bit about some structures of programming languages. You remember this from the pre-course as well, that we were talking about high-level visual languages, then going to more towards or closer to the hardware into something that we call machine language or assembly and so on, which are a little bit more cryptic and a little difficult to understand, but as you can imagine, they are a little bit more efficient because they have less and less abstractions. Then we talked specifically about Python, about that guy, which was the creator of it, why do we use it, and many more things. And we jumped to installing and running a couple of examples that basically were just what we call hello worlds, that I think you successfully made them work by running them on your terminal. And we were split into groups trying to make this work and understand each of them. I intentionally jumped one part here, which was talking about packages and Python environments. This I will still leave for reference for you in the future. I don't think this is important right now to get to know what Python environments are, but I think that is important to know what packages are, because we're going to start using them in today's examples. So as we saw in the pre-course, when we were talking about Arduino and using Arduino framework to make some little installations for our boards in the pre-course, where we were facing that a lot of the functions and utils that Arduino gives us are already very useful and have a lot of possibilities, but that sometimes we found that we needed some external, let's say, libraries or functionalities that we couldn't find in Arduino, or that they were too difficult for us to, let's say, code them at that moment. So we were using libraries. If you remember, I'm just going to go to the pre-course so that this resonates a little bit better. We were talking about from ideas to code, and we were here. You remember probably with this picture, we were talking about libraries and, let's say, these functionalities that we can use and include in our code, so that they are so that we can get more complex functionality working in our code with less effort and benefit from others people work in the past. And we were including the fastlet library to control the neopixels, right? So a package in Python is more or less that. There are some differences, but for the purpose of this course, we just can consider it as a set of tools that helps us do some tasks that are beyond, let's say, the normal scope of, or the normal scope of Python itself. And that, for instance, can help us interact with hardware, can help us interact with the internet, or can help us process files in many different ways. This is just that. There's nothing super complex about it. The way, as you can imagine, there are packages for anything, and the main repository where you can find packages is called PyPy or PyPI, which is basically a repository where people post their packages and then you can download them and install them in your computer. How you can do that? Well, in the terminal is very simple. The main comment that you, or the function, sorry, the let's say the instruction that you would call is called pip. I don't know exactly if it's Python install package or something like this, and then install, and then you would put the package name. So for instance, we could call, if we wanted to install a package called
Oscar, should we do this now? While
no, I'm just giving you,
Oh,
no,
okay.
don't worry. This is nothing, there's nothing to do. So imagine, this is just an example. So imagine I'm here in the terminal again. If I wanted to install this package that we will use later today, it's called image.io. I can just say pip install image.io, and then in my case, I already have it, but in your case, it will very likely run a set of instructions, and at the end will say successful install, you have this package installed, and then you can call it from your Python scripts, okay? Don't worry too much about that. I will give you more details on what you have to do after that. Now we are just doing a little bit of recap and going a little bit further. Do you have any questions so far?
No.
No. Okay. So the session for today, after what we saw in this Python 101 2 weeks ago, is going to be about interacting with the internet. This is a very nice excuse to see some global structures and data structures that Python has, and also how to get data from your computer to your Python runtime, or from the internet to Python runtime and then to your computer, for instance, downloading photos and making a GIF out of that. Actually, I'm just going to show you the example that we hope, or that I hope that we can get to run at the end today. So if you go to the Code Club repo, and you go to master, the 2020 branch, and you go to the folder Python Internet, there's a set of examples in there. And we're going to be focusing mainly on the example number 2, which is called an API request. We will see what is all that in a second. But for now, I just want to show you what this does. So if I run this and I ask for its help, basically it's asking for a title. So this script, what it does is that it calls an open movie database, and I'm gonna send that. So it's gonna make a request online with this script, with this, this name here, Oscar, to an open movie database. It's gonna download the posters of that movie database, and it's gonna make a GIF out of that. So let's actually see what happens. This is the script running.
Oscar, sorry, can you send the link to this GitLab website?
Yeah, for now, you don't have to worry. You don't have to run anything. I'm just showing the example, but I put it in the chat, okay?
Thank you.
So it finished. And now if I go here, I gave it my name, Oscar. So now I have, let's see. Oops. There we go. So basically what it did is that I passed it my name, Oscar, and it made a query or a request to an open movie database. It downloaded the posters from there, and then it made a GIF out of that. So basically, you see here, there's a lot of movies that had that name, Oscar, whatever, and it made a GIF out of it, and now I have it in my computer. I could also do another example. For example, let's see, Jasmine, since you asked the question. And let's see if there are many movies that have that name in there. There's Blue Jasmine, Jasmine Flower. Oh my God, actually Jasmine, let's see. And now I have a GIF with all the movie posters that, oops, wait. Wait a second. Okay, there we go. So these are all the movie posters that we can find that have Jasmine in the title, and we have a GIF right now out of that. So we're gonna see how we do this probably between today and the next session. And along that path, what we're gonna do is try to understand some Python structures and how do we make the request, where do we store the files, how do we make the GIF, and make all these functions, okay? That's the, as you see here, one of the movies is called Lady Oscar. Anyway, so to get to that point, we need to know some basics, okay? And really, if you get to know these basics, you mostly can get to know or can get your head around almost all Python scripting or basic scripting, okay? So basically, these things are 5 concepts. The first one is a function. Then you have to know what is a class. You have to know what are lists, dicts, and sometimes what are tuples, which are a special thing in Python. If you get to know these things, more or less, you can get yourself around coding in Python very simple, okay? So let's get into it. Let's open this. So the first thing, and you already did this last time, if you remember well, we had this Python script that we were running that said, if I pass a name, then it will say hello. You remember this from 2 weeks ago?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. So basically when we saw inside this Python script, and I remember you actually looking at it in the breakout rooms that we had this argument that we were parsing, whatever, and then we were calling a function that was called main. And then we were passing it the argument of the name that we wanted to print. This function, what we was doing, it was just printing the name, well, it was printing hello and then adding the name after that. And in some cases, it was receiving an extra argument that was saying if I wanted to repeat it or not. But the script was a little bit rebel and didn't want to repeat what we were doing it because it was coded that way, okay? But the important thing here is that basically what we were doing is just calling what we call a function. You already know this from Arduino and the programming on the pre-course. That basically is a set of instructions that we group together and that we can call. And sometimes we can pass some arguments or sometimes not. And sometimes it can return something and sometimes it doesn't return anything. In this case, for instance, what we're doing is we are calling the function and just passing the name, but it doesn't return anything. It just does some stuff. And then we go back to our main flow and that's it. This is already, I think, quite simple. We saw this in the pre-course, and in Python, the only difference is that you define functions with this keyword here, that is def, def as a definition, then the name of the function, and then the arguments that you pass, and then semicolon, or sorry, colon. And then inside there, you put the instructions that you want to put for the function to do, and maybe make use of these arguments, and that's it. One thing about Python that is very important to remember, and is if you see here when I select the text, is that Python doesn't have these curly brackets that we saw in the pre-course for the functions in Arduino. But it has, and then you would wondering, how does Python know what are the instructions of the function and where do they end? Do you guys have any clue about that? Can someone maybe guess?
With the columns? Or no?
With the what? Sorry.
With the two dots.
Okay, so that marks the start of the function, and how do we know that it ends? How do you know that it ends here? Or in which line number do we think that it finishes?
10.
Number 10.
With the colon.
Okay, and why is that? And why is that? Why do you think that ends in 10 and not in 12, for instance, or in 7?
The indentation tells you that?
Exactly, yeah. So basically Python works with indentation to group things. And if you see when I select the text, it gives you this little bar in here. That means that there's a tab in there. And everything that is a level inside line 3, so line 5, line 7, and line 8 are inside the function of that we call main. Once we did this, do you think that this instruction would be inside the main function, or would it be before or outside? Sorry.
Outside.
Okay, so if I run this program again on the left side of the screen, you see that it prints hello because it goes all the way down to line 10. It sees the function and just stores it somewhere, but it doesn't execute it. It prints here, then it goes to this part. Actually, I could even delete this. And leave it like that so that it's simpler to understand. It goes all the way down here. It calls this argument parsing thingy that is just, for now, we will just take it as a gift. And then it calls the function in the last line, actually. When it calls it, it passes the argument, it prints, and it prints again. So you see the workflow here. So it does hello, then hello Oscar, and then I don't really want to repeat it. If I printed something here, like 5, it does it at the very end after finishing the execution of this function, right? Is that all clear? I think it's do you have any questions or doubts with this?
Clear for now.
Okay. So 2 things that we learned here is that how do we define a function, how we pass arguments, and then that basically the indentation works as a, let's say, grouping and defining the scope of different things. Normally this concept is called a scope in programming languages, and the scope in Python is defined by indentation. If you, for instance, did this, Python will complain. It would go like, you see, it says inconsistent use of tabs and spaces in indentation. It means that you, even though you put it inside like that, it will still complain as well because it doesn't like different stuff in the file. Here we have a tab and here we have 4 spaces. And even if the distance is the same, Python doesn't like that and it starts complaining. So every time that you see this error, this tab error, inconsistent use of tabs and spaces in indentation, just have a look at the hidden characters that you have behind your code, that you can highlight them simply by selecting the text. And you will see that here, this is not the same as this. And when I fix that, it does, oops, it still complains. When I fix that, it doesn't complain anymore because now all the characters are just tabs, okay? So long story short, function, grouping, and scoping, and then the type of indentation. Okay, are you still holding up? Fine.
Wait,
Yep,
so
fine.
You could go ahead, please. Jasmine?
never mind. It's fine.
I don't know. Well, or Jose, I don't know who was asking as well.
No, I was saying it's understood up to now.
Anything else? Are you sure, Jasmine?
So do I have to put the line or you just indent?
You indent by pressing the tab.
Yeah.
Which is just to make sure that everyone because sometimes I in English I don't know.
No, sorry.
And I'm not saying it because of you. I'm just saying it because of just to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Yeah.
And I think everyone uses a Mac, so let's look for a Mac.
No, I got it.
It's this one here. So okay.
Thank you.
So that's it. That's our first of many. Then in programming language in general, we have something that is called or an idea that is object-oriented programming, or you could see it sometimes as OOP, which is a very common way of programming, which is based on objects. Objects and classes are something that I think that it's good that you get familiar with as soon as possible in your journeys on programming. So let's get into it. Does anyone have any, maybe even with this description, or could anyone give me like sort of idea of what a class or an object is in any programming language?
It's a like set of values that defines it, or
So
I don't know.
let's put it as let's do it this way. And actually, let's do it with this example. Imagine that we had to make a definition or a script that is able to get we had a hardware shop and we are selling furniture, and we need to make a script that is able to make a classification of all the furniture that we sell. We could sell tables, we could sell chairs, we could sell stools, cupboards, and things like this. And imagine that we wanted to make something that classifies this thing and describes it in a, let's say, programmatic manner, because we don't want to make a script that has to define everything specifically as a table or as a chair or as a stool, but we want to say that we define furniture. So one way we could do that is that we could think as an abstraction that what we want to sell is something that a lot of the items have many things in common. For instance, many of them, like chairs, stools, and tables or desktops, they have in common is that they have legs. And we could imagine that the number of legs, it's a property of that object. Also, the height of that is a property. And the surface, for instance. And we could think about many other things. For instance, I don't know, if it's varnished or not, if it's painted and in what color, if it's wood, metal, or plastic, etc., etc. And mentally, we have this abstraction that, okay, what we're talking about is furniture, and these different properties define what we actually want. And even we could give it a name and say that this is a table, or this is a chair, or this is a desktop, or this is something else. So basically, that is what we try to do in here. The example here, let's actually, let's keep it like this. And let's simplify a little for now. And let's see what this is doing. So here, I'm gonna define class. This is the way that we define it in Python, is with this keyword here. That is of what we're gonna talk about is furniture, okay? We can, this is a method that starts that class, let's say, and that basically tells us what type of furniture it is and how many legs it has. And when we call this, basically we can pass it arguments. For instance, in this case, we will pass it that is a type of table and that it has 4 legs. And later on, we can call what we call a method inside that class that basically does something. For instance, it could be just printing a description of that table object, let's say, and does nothing else. It could be something very complex, like make a complex calculation. It could just give you something back. It could be many things, but for now we're just going to keep it simple, and we're going to say that basically when we call this function inside this class object, we are just going to print a string describing a little bit what we're doing. So let's run this and let's hope that this makes a little sense. So if I run this script class, you see here that I am first calling this piece one object. This is an object that we define of the type class. In this case, we could mentally make that abstraction that is a table. And we're saying, I want an object of that type that is a table and that has 4 legs. Once you have created it, actually we could do this. Object of furniture. Once you have done that, then I want you to define it, or actually better than define, we're gonna say describe. and I want you to describe it, and it will basically say, hey, I am, in this case, a table, and I have 4 legs. And that's what we see in here. Okay, let's run this again. See here, we see the output of this print. And the nice thing about this is that we can create as many for instance, as many as we want, and they all share chair. We're gonna make a chair that has 6 legs, very strange one. And they share the same properties and the same way of interacting with them. And it's a very generic way of organizing information. So you see here, when I make the first one, I make a table of 4 legs, and then I make a chair of 6 legs, and I describe them both. They start, both of them are created, and then they are described and say, hey, I'm a table with 4 legs, and I'm a chair with 6 legs. Does this, do you have any questions? This is probably the most complicated thing we're gonna see today, so I want you to not be shy and ask if there's any problem here. What do you think?
Like when we've been coding in HTML, I think it's similar the way you divide the code, right? Like if it's head and body, right? Is it good to see it that way as well?
Yeah, actually, when you, I think that's a good way, but also you could see it as the classes in HTML. So, you know, when you imagine that this was, this is pseudo HTML, but here we say div class, I don't know, button, and we make something here. We put a button with a description that is submit. And we close that div. Or it could be an image or something like that. And then in the CSS, we say things like this, class, sorry, button, and then we say that that button has a color in red. More or less, that's the same concept. So we are defining a series of objects that have, let's say, are of a certain type or for a certain class. And then we group all of them under a category and define things for them. In this case, in the website, what we're doing is that we, for example, can customize the way they look. But in the case of Python or other languages, what we want to do is, let's say, standardize the way that we define them and the things that they can do. For instance, in the case of furniture, we know that they have legs and they can be certain types, or we could describe other things, but also the things that them as objects can do, or that they can give us. For instance, we could also think as real. And then say out of. So we did this. You see how simple it becomes to just change things.
Yeah.
So now if I go here, you see that all of a sudden we just said in our abstractions of furniture, we just added a new property that is the material. And we say now that we have a piece of furniture that is a table with 4 legs and it's made out of plastic, and then the same for the chair, but it's made out of wood. And here we have access to all of that, which all of a sudden, if you think about out of these toy examples, it becomes very powerful because it creates very simple ways or workflows to make this code a little bit more complex without having to refurbish the whole thing. Yeah. And if you want to see Santi's daughter, you can just go to his camera now. Very. Anyway, more questions?
She's so cute. Hola, mi amor. Cute.
Actually, let's do this in honor of Gloria. So this little person and then let's do this as well. Big person. I'm defining an object that has, I don't know how old Santa is, let's say that is 40, I don't know. Big person, say name. And if I run this one now, oops, I am just do this very quick. There we go. So you see that I just created this other class that is a person that can have properties like name and age. And then we could say present, like that person can present themselves. And then they would say, hello, my name is Gloria and I am 0 years old. Hello, my name is Santi and I am 40 years old. And with these 2 lines, we just made available all of these different properties and methods that we can use later. Yeah. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay. So let's just, I'm gonna give you 2 more pieces of information, and then we're gonna jump into making that example work. Okay, so.
I need to ask you something. What are we using Python for?
What are we using it for?
Yeah.
Yeah, so as any programming language that is not like specific for creative coding or anything like that, Python can be used for many things. At this very moment, we're just trying to get the basics for programming languages, and at this very moment, we're just trying to use Python as an easy excuse to get our head around these programming paradigms. So it's not that we're using it for a specific purpose at this moment, but
like a little
in general,
sample pack. Got it.
Yeah, so it's at this very moment, we're just getting to know a little bit how Python or programming languages work and some basics of computer science. But to answer the actual, I don't know if there was the actual question, but let's just say this.
Perfect.
It can be used, and many other languages like C++ or Java can be used for all these things and many more. People has been making these things grow in huge ways. And now we have for web development, for graphic user interface, people in the science in engineering, or scientists use it as well for analyzing data or doing millions of things. And it has been, I think, I think it has just become, yeah, toppled. So one of the most, oh,
Got it. So she's
yeah.
popular.
So it's like it's just like now is the second most powerful or most popular language. There's a lot of hype around it as well, because it's like the fancy thing to work on data analysis and machine learning and this type of frameworks right now. But just so you know that you can basically do almost anything in it, and we will try to see some things. Okay. Actually, let's use this. Let's use of the elections. False. Let's just say so. So imagine that we were now making the United States Census, and we want to control whether or not there's voter fraud. And we're going to make a class or a method or a script that tells us if a person is eligible to vote or not based on their age. So let me skip this so that we don't get that. And oops. Here I have that problem. So you see I have this indentation thing. Let me fix that. What's going on? 25. What is going on? Here we go. Okay, so here imagine that we were doing this and we were checking if Gloria or something were eligible to vote based on their age. And here we could say that Gloria is clearly not because she's 0 years old, and Santi is eligible to vote because he's older than 19.
Hey, 39.
39, okay, sorry. 39. Let's just do this for clarity. There we go. He is still eligible to vote, okay? But not Gloria yet. And as you see already how easy has it been for me to add this without having to make a huge file and define not even functions, but making all this in a very long way. The script still hasn't grown more than 20 lines, and we are almost there to make a valid census for the election. Any questions? Okay. I want to show you how to get help. That this is, we have all the reference here. Before we jump into making the example, I just want to show you one very important thing. That is how to get help in Python. Let's see Let's just put it in here. I'm gonna ask about help of that list. You see here that when I run this example, it gives me, so basically if I put help and something inside, especially if it's a known object, it gives you some information about this. It gives you all the methods, you already know what is a class, and you can see that is a very long information. So if that is a little bit overwhelming, you can also just go Python list help, and in any of your browsers you can have millions of tutorials, and here you can understand a little bit better. But just remember that when you are working without internet, you also have accessible this help, and it shows more all the possibilities that you can use and you can have in that particular thing. Okay, so let's try to jump into making this work. We're going to interact with, as I said, this IMDb.
Oscar, can I interject really quickly? So for all of you guys who haven't used Python before or really coded, I just wanted to like really echo what Oscar just said. Like you can get so much help in the internet, and since Python is this open source community, there's like 99.9% chance that someone's already done what you're trying to do. There's this wonderful website called Stack Overflow, and basically I learned all my Python on Stack Overflow. So like Jasmine, maybe today this feels really intimidating, but like, you know, every time you have a question, you're trying to figure out how to do something, you go on Stack Overflow and then you see how someone else does it. And then like next thing you know, you'll be just as fluent as in Python as in English.
Cool, thanks. I appreciate it.
Just a quick comment on that. So, well, let's do some work for Google. But here, so as Clement was saying, this is Stack Overflow is probably the biggest community where people help one another to solve questions about programming language in general and computer science. And it works with this voting system, which when you put a question, and if it's a relevant question, people basically vote with these arrows here. And if it's very relevant for the community, then it gets like more popular so that other people can find it easier. And also the person that was asking gets to validate the answer that they gave you. So if you, for example, put an answer here that is not very good, then people would downvote you and say, no, this is not what the person was asking, or this is not good, on the other way around. And this is, like, as you can imagine, this is a huge community. I don't know how many questions there would be, but it's really, really crazy. And basically, if you ask, for instance, DuckDuckGo a question, for instance, then it will very likely, oops, not this one. Let's say, I don't know, something. Sometimes here on the right side, here you go. So it gives you already the best Stack Overflow answer on the right side. So you say something is not working, and then the response in that side. And you see, for instance, here, this is like a very long explanation, and there are even fights sometimes in the comments because people get a little bit personal about it. But either way, just a quick DuckDuckGo or Google or whatever browser you use, and in Stack Overflow is very helpful. Many times you will also end up in GitHub if you have particular problems. For instance, I don't know, you can end up, imagine that we were using this image IO. This is the package that we will use to make the GIFs right now. And here in the issues, many times you would find someone had the same problem as you just did. So you could look into the issues of the particular package or the library that you're using, and very likely someone has already answered that question and said, for instance, error installing image.io. Okay, I have the same problem 17 days ago. I would like to install it, but I have this error. You paste it in here. And if you follow a code of contact and everything, someone, probably even the development team, which is, I think, very powerful, that you have like direct contact with people that is at the core of what you're using, tries to answer and say what the recommendations are for that, which I think is super powerful for making a very agile development workflows, but also to learn and to get into an open, let's say, path to understanding what we're doing. So do you have any more comments or questions? Would you like to do like a 5 minutes break, or should we keep going? Could keep talking forever if you want.
You can keep going.
Okay, so someone just joined. Okay, so we're gonna interact with the internet, with our coding, and with our scripts. Here, there's an introduction of some of the ways that we can interact with the internet. There are many, many ways that we can do that, as you can imagine. We are gonna just focus on what we call making requests or downloading things, basically, which is we're just gonna ask a website for some information and use that information in our script to do something. What we're gonna do basically is that we want to make a script that, given a certain a string, let's say a certain name or a certain word, makes a GIF from the posters of the movies that contain that name in the title. Probably it's a little bit weird, but I think with the sample you can see here that when I put the word laboratory, I have all these posters, and I can make an animation out of those posters and save it in my computer. Okay. So how do we plan for this? What would you do? I know that this is here in documentation, but I would like to hear from you to think a little bit about what would be the workflow of the things that we will start with. Let me go to this thing and you will talk. So I'm listening. Hello? What would be if you wanted to make this thing, what would you do first?
Well, first tell where are we looking for the information?
Okay. So here, let me just put this in here. Where are we looking for info? Okay, I told you that already is IMDb, so the Internet Movie Database. Okay. Okay. What else?
What information we're looking for?
I like the keyword or something. No?
Okay, so basically, how do we if we were doing it in this flowchart manner, basically what would be what we put in here? Let's say that we wanted to start or would you put in here?
And select a keyword, I suppose.
Select or input keyword. Okay, perfect. Then what do we do? Do we have conditions? Do we have other actions? What would you do if I asked you to do that individually?
Do we need a filter, like for example, like focusing on posters or whatever, or something like that?
Yeah, for now, let's restrict it to posters. So basically, with that keyword, what we want to know is all the movie posters that are in IMDb, which ones contain that keyword.
I would add like only retrieve if the rating is above 4.
I love it.
Okay. Okay, well, we'll add that feature later. I'll keep it here. Let's put it like this. Rating larger than 4.0. Okay. But what do we do before that? So if I go to IMDb, and if I was doing that, I could search here and I could say laboratory. And it gives me this in title. So I have this list. So this is something that actually IMDb or whatever we're calling, they already do that job for us, right? So we can go into IMDb and say, give me everything that contains laboratory.
But this retrieval is on their end, not your end. So how do you? I mean,
yeah, I'll for now, let's just keep the abstraction a little bit to the workflow. I'll show you the trick that I did to make it work, and another concept. But let's just assume that we are able to gather this to get this from Python. So what I would suggest is
you say retrieval, I guess. Okay.
Exactly. Retrieve from retrieve let's say list of movies from IMDb, right? And maybe now Mark's suggestions jumps in. Yeah. So what do we do? Oops. Let's say that this is this is a no, and this is a yes. What do I do in each case? So in case of a no, what do? Should
Ignore.
Ignore, okay. And in case of yes?
Retrieve.
And I do what? I say retrieve what?
Poster.
Retrieve poster. Good. Okay. And then once imagine that I do this for each of them. Let's say I go here and I say retrieve poster, and what should I do with that poster? I want to have it in my computer, so maybe say download image. And then imagine that we say, come back here. And we say, I'm just going to give you a little help. Done with list of movies. So if you're done with the list, what should you do? And if you're not done, what should you do? So if I'm not done with the list,
you continue looking for movies or downloading the posters.
okay, so I go to this point, for instance. Huh? So I would go to the next item and keep going. And if I'm done with the movies list, so if there's no more movies that I can check,
You generate the GIF.
perfect. Generate. Generated. We could even just say save it in local folder, for instance. Huh? So this is our algorithm, and this is basically what I did, except for the for Mark's suggestion. I didn't have any rating to compare, but probably that's a nice challenge for you guys. Basically, if you go to this script, you will see that there are a lot of functions, and that there's some little structures that you already know. This, like from the first time that we saw it, we called functions to call and make the request to IMDb. And then for each of the movies that we had, we got the poster, as you said, and then we made the GIF in here, in this part. Okay, so before digging into this, what I want you to do is two things. First is to, and then put it in here. Go to Code Club in your computer using terminal, of course. Then do pip install image IO, and then Python to API request.py. So basically run a script. Okay. And we will do this again with the same structure that we did last time, with breakout rooms. I'm just going to leave this in here. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I think in the Santi, in the calendar, do we have the breakout rooms already, right?
Yes.
And they are in Google Meet. Okay. So guys, I suggest that you now do the same as we did last time, which is breaking up into different rooms. I think we have probably 1, 2, 3. Probably we could do 3
Maybe
groups. Yeah.
2 or 3, yeah.
And then we, I'll be jumping between them. That okay?
Yes.
Where are the links for the Google Meets?
They should be in the calendar, but I will paste them in the chat.
Yeah, I can do it also.
Okay. Si quieres poner tú, Santi, el 3 y el 4, y yo pongo el 1 y el 2. Así vamos más rápido.
Oscar, I have a quick question about the API key.
Yeah, that I have to give you. Good question. I totally forgot about giving you that. Santi is much faster than me. Okay, so the API key. normally, when you interact with websites and the internet, and I'm just going to give you this brief comment. This is a very good question. Many websites, they don't like that you go around and start asking them for things. They actually have in the terms and conditions, they have conditions about you shouldn't use robots or screen scraping or data gathering tools from using scripts. So don't worry, we're not going to do anything illegal like calling IMDb itself. What we are going to call is OMDB, which is the Open Movie Database. And normally the way that you interact with this is through what Clement said, an API key that you can normally get from the API provider itself. Basically, an API is a way that companies and let's say web resources have to control the information that they can provide you. And by controlling with a small access token. And in this case, so that you don't have to create it, I need you to go to your, let's say, text editor. And as you see in my folder here, 02 Python Internet, I need you to create what we call an environment file, which has this name. It's ends in .env and has this on the as an API key. Don't worry, this is not an important code or anything. I'm sharing it with you. You normally wouldn't do this in normal life, but since we are in a controlled environment, that's okay. So that's the API key. And once you use the script, it will look for that .env file and it will load it and it will run. Okay. So I'm gonna put this as well into here.
But sorry, Oscar, how do we include this key in the? Because I tried to run it and it actually asked me for the env file.
Exactly. So what you need to do is in Atom or whichever text editor you use, just create a file, a new file.
Okay, and we save it.
Save it and save it with the name called .env. It probably will complain,
Okay.
saying that names with dot are reserved, but just do it, and it will work. Okay. So I'm gonna leave the instructions here. Let me just close this.
Sorry, what exactly do you refer when saying go to Code Club using terminal?
So you should have downloaded the Code Club repository, this repository.
Oh, yeah. What is the name of that file?
So you should go into the master branch, into the 2020 branch. And you should, I'm gonna put all this. Let me give it. So yeah. CG02 Python 02. Okay. So I'm gonna put all this here. So I will make this nicer. And then before this, we need to open Atom. API key.
Oscar, one thing.
Mhm.
I think so everybody is or in the Zoom or in the session 2, let's say
Okay.
in the Meet 2. Nobody's in the Meet 1 or 4. So
Maybe we can
maybe we
just.
can be all, let's say, in the Zoom if nobody wanted to be in the.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
No, I mean it's okay. It's up to you.
I don't know if probably they were waiting at the moment to still be.
Where do we have to go?
I think you can go. You can pick, or either let's keep it simple. You can go to the Zoom. Sorry, to either number 1 or what was it? Number 3, or stay here, and we will be jumping between them. It's just to have smaller groups, like we did last time.
Okay.
So you pick basically.
I will just stay here.
Okay. So whomever is staying here, who wants to stay here? Maybe Clement, you stay here.
I'm having problems, Oscar, define how I do define the search. I don't get it.
Okay.
How do I say the word I want to search?
Sorry. So let's look at the internet. I'm a little bit slow. So if you look here at the help, there's a help command when you call the API request, and it tells you that if you put -t and then the word, it will give you that. So if I say user, I say I call the Python script and then I pass -t, the same way as we did last time the name for the hello world. And you can put this in quotes or not. It depends. If you put it in quotes, you can then have the freedom to put spaces. If you don't put it in quotes, you just have to keep a single word. Okay. So if I run that, let's see. Actually, there are quite a few. Roger Rabbit, of course. There are quite a few of them.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. I don't know, Santi, do you think that we should go to the meets as well, or should we just stay here?
I think so here it's okay. I mean, the people that wants to go to a private, like let's say room, they are set up.
Okay.
But I think so most of them, they prefer to be here probably because it's where the action will happen. I think so. That's my feeling. I'm in all of the meet, let's say meet groups. So if suddenly there's a question for you, Oscar, I will, let's see, let you know. Okay.
Okay.
So let's Oscar stay you here, and I will control the other ones.
Thank you. Okay. So I'm gonna leave this on.
I don't know why, but I cannot make it run.
Okay. Can you maybe
Can I
share your
share my-
screen?
Yes.
Stop sharing. Okay, all yours.
Do you see it?
Yeah. Oh, you have a nice setup already with Sublime and the terminal there.
Yeah.
Already.
But I don't know why. So I run the Python. I'm already here, and I run the Python. I put the title.
Okay. Can you open the env file? I think the problem must be there.
But I already have the.
Can you open it on the on Sublime so that we see how it looks?
This one. I cannot see it here.
Yeah.
This is the one I saved.
Okay.
I saved it.
Is there any trailing space or anything in that file after the API key or anything? No, it's 2A 311.
No.
15. Okay. Okay. Could you, in line 17 in the script, could you put after that, could you say print API key in the variable that you have in line 17, the uppercase one? Exactly, and you need to print with parentheses around that. Oh, parentheses, sorry. Okay, and now save it and run the script.
Do I have to put the title?
Yeah, just put it. Okay, so the API key is good. And let's see, value error bad request. Okay. Oh, okay. This is because we are getting probably a 404 or something like that. If you go to line, so let's try to see what's going on here. So why would we have that message that says value error bad request? It comes from line 30, right? And how do we get there? Because you see in line 27, what we do is we make this call to OMDB, let's say, the API, and then you know these HTTP response codes, right? If you get a 200, it means that it's successful. If you get a 200, a 400 or 403 or 404 or 502, those are like different codes in HTTP requests that basically signify something. So let's see actually what is the code, the response code that we have. So if you want in line 27, before that, you could basically print the response status code. Remember that you need to do it inside as an indent. Exactly. Because we are in the make request function now. As it is, exactly.
Like this?
Response dot status code.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. So now you can save it and let's see what happens. If you press arrow up, it will just do the last one. So it's a 401. And a 401 is 401. Code. It's unauthorized, which means very likely that our HTTP, sorry, the API key has something wrong. So let me run this again. So for me, it works. Okay. So we're gonna try by making another one. And I'm gonna pass you, where is the chat here? Chat. So let's do it together. If you go to that website, let's try to get another API key. So if you go to API key on the top, there we go. You can get a free API key with a limitation. Yeah. And then maybe just like an example of like educational or student. Yeah.
Here?
And the following, you have to activate it. So I guess that you have to go to the last one. Yeah.
But
that
so
I think
API keys are like personal.
I think so, but I think that in this one you could have used mine, but let's just take that key now that is activated and paste it in your environment file, replacing the one that I, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, and let's run the script again. There you go. So it was the API key. So now it's downloading.
And where is it saved? In the same folder where I have the...
Exactly. It's downloading all the images. So you will see a bunch of JPEG images there. There you go. And Roger Stone. And now there you have your GIF. Okay, so now, since you already have this up and running, you can either do two things. We can, from whomever has a problem getting this running, I suggest that you help us get up to speed with the rest as well. And that if you want in parallel to maybe implement that feature that Mark was requesting before, maybe we can work on it. Okay.
Okay, thank you. So I stay here, right?
Yeah. And if anyone wants to go to a breakout room or similar, feel free. Okay, we stay here for some minutes.
Oscar, can you go back to the instructions for the image IO and the...
Yeah, let me actually, I was thinking what I'm gonna do is selection, export, and I'm just gonna put the file in here. There you go. So you should have instructions in the chat.
Okay, thanks.
So that way I don't have to cancel them. And then in the meantime, I'm just gonna put all this in the docs so that it stays forever. Okay, so is it working? How do you guys feel in general? Is it too much info? You guys there? You're trying, not trying? Does it work? Mhm. Mhm. If you want, you and actually Jose, you and I, we can go and try to solve that. And you, Clement, I don't want to interrupt you. Thank you for your help. You maybe can keep going with Anais to yeah. So let's go to group 2, maybe, Jose. Okay, guys, let's close up a little. Do we have a polls? Do you want to, Santi, share the results? You're muted, I think. Go ahead. I don't see the...
Yeah. It's just to have like an overview of the first like session and how the people like get the basic concepts of the last day. It's okay. It's interesting.
Oh, okay.
At least no one is clicking in, no idea that we was.
Yeah, but there is some people that are not here, so we can say that actually.
Well, maybe we can repeat next day, and we can add like the concepts of today. We can keep like these polls like at the end of the sessions, just to see. Yeah, don't worry. This is just like just to have an overview.
Okay.
So guys, did anyone try anything else? Did you, Mark, implement that nice feature that you were talking about?
No, I'm kind of like lost. I don't know.
Do you want to have a look at anything, or want to like have a look at it and then we talk in the next session maybe?
Yeah, maybe it's a good exercise to try by yourselves, and then maybe touch base in a couple weeks.
Yeah. How about we do this? For next session, we normally don't like to have like homework for you guys on to do anything for the next time. But if you want to stay up to pace for this the next session and the next weeks, if you want to try at home, see what fails, try to figure out, even you can open an issue in your repository or email us, however you want. And we see next session what were the problems, what were the most common things, and we try to wrap up all that together.
Yes.
Yeah. So we do that. Good. So, well, I hope that you were going to say something, Clement. Sorry.
I was just curious if the OMDB API even has a ratings field, because if it does,
I don't know.
We'll have to.
I'm not sure. Probably they have very limited fields. Actually, let's see, because you can. Let me just show you the last thing. So, share my screen again. Here. So what we're doing with the Python, we can do it as well directly in the browser, of course. So we can construct the same request that we did in Python. So if we go to equal and then John, and then say API key equal, and then the API key. There we go. So this is the response that do you see my screen there?
Yes.
Okay, so you see, I'm talking to OMDB, and here, if you look into the code a little bit, you will see that we are making a request with this URL. So we just make this, let's say, URL step by step in the code, but we're basically doing the same. I'm passing the API key and the search query. And when I do that, it returns this basically. In raw, it returns this data, but we can look at it a little bit nicer. And these are all the, let's say, the movies that have John in the title. And actually, they don't have, as you say, they don't have any rating field, but they have the ID in IMDb. So we could maybe do something a little bit trickier, that is go to IMDb and get the rating, or to another open source movies rating database. But here, basically, you see that I gather the post from here, these images, and then I go to Amazon and get and download this file. By clicking here, this is what I get. A pretty creepy poster, but still. So for each of the names that we put, we get an item, a series of items, and each of the items have the title, the year, the IMDb ID, what it was, a movie, and the poster. That is what we're downloading and then making into a GIF. Yeah, so basically this is a little bit of it's the same representation, but doing it in the browser. Okay, so let's just out of curiosity, go here. There we go. So you see here that when I go and take John Wick and I take this ID from IMDb, I go here and I have the same. So it's more or less connected. And the rating in this case is 7.4, not that good. Anyway, so where are you guys? I don't see it. Here. Can I stop sharing? Any comments or any questions before we close? Do you find these things useful? Do you feel that they are too overwhelming? Any sort of feedback that you want to give? No.
We need more practice, like real projects where we apply it.
Exactly,
Okay.
I agree.
Yeah, I think that first, I don't want to contradict, and I value the opinion. I just think that we have to level up a little bit and put everyone to the same level. And I think that with Lucas, in this first machine learning course that you will have in 2-3 weeks, you will get to do a lot of that. And also we will do that in the File Academy course during the 6 months that we have in there with more practical stuff. So don't worry. I understand that this can be boring for some people, or not as exciting, or not as challenging. But I think that we have to get everyone to the same level, let's say. But I totally understand. And for the next sessions, I think we can make more examples with more practical stuff. Yeah. Okay. Any? Yeah, Clement?
Oh no, I was just going to say thanks for the session.
Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Let's close here and see you. I'm not in.
Do we have Git this week? I think so, right?
I
For the
think.
website on Friday.
I think no. I think it's next week,
Next
because
week.
we had one last week.
Okay.
So it would be in 2 weeks from now, and it would be.
See
I don't
you
know.
guys.
But we have the Grow Club next week.
Exactly, that's what I'm thinking, and I think
the Make Club, and then again.
And then, so it will be 3 weeks from now that we will see each other in the Code Club, and 2 weeks from now that we will see each other in the HTML.
Oscar.
Yeah.
Did you have the troubleshooting of Git on Friday or not?
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
So you did 2 in a row.
Was it last Friday? No.
I think in the calendar.
No, we did. No, we didn't have it. No. It's this Friday when we have.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. I got confused. Yeah, it was not last Friday. It is next Friday. This Friday.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So
thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.